Well, it looks as though the Navy may be about to disobey a direct order to turn back migrant boats in the Channel. As part of so-called Operation Red Meat, Boris Johnson is putting the Navy in charge of the Channel, taking over essentially from Border Force. Now, I think it would have been better to call them Open Border Force, to be honest, because more than 28,000 illegal immigrants managed to make it to Britain last year, and more than 550 migrants arrived in just the first 2 weeks of this year. It's clear that something has to change, but the fact is our current plans to bring in the Navy look like they've been drawn up on the back of a fag packet. Priti Patel said pushing migrant boats back absolutely still remains government policy. The implication there is that the Navy will now be brought in to enact that policy. Border Force flat out refused to obey that order, so presumably the thinking is that the Navy would be more compelled to carry out those instructions. But that doesn't seem to be the case, and I have some sympathy for them, to be honest with you. Numerous Navy sources have said that they don't simply want to obey the orders. In fact, Patel's comments took them by surprise. One source said that no decisions had been made about how the Royal Navy would be deployed. They said talks had been taking place with the government for numerous weeks, but that the notion of pushing boats back had not been discussed. There are concerns as well, let's be honest, that it may be illegal. If it is illegal, then I have some sympathy for the Navy, of course, because, again, let's be honest, nobody will want to find themselves in court for essentially having committed a crime against humanity. But if it's simply a question of ethics, then I'm very sorry, but that's not a good enough reason to disobey an order, if indeed they do. And it looks like it actually might be about morals. In fact, one source told The Guardian, classic, "I'm not sure pushback would work. It's not part of our ethics." I can completely understand this. The fact is, of course, that pushing boats back means that there will probably be more deaths in the Channel. We'll push them back, the French won't take them, they'll turn their motors off, the boats may eventually sink, hypothermia sets in as well, and we all know what happens next. But an order, of course, is an order, and ethics can't get in the way of that. That's not the way the military works. I'm not saying that's necessarily the right thing to do, I'm just saying that's not the way the military works. To be honest, of course, that is, though, a reason why I do have a bit of a problem with it, because there's no two ways about it. If we do operate a pushback protocol, it does mean more migrants die in the Channel. And I'm not sure any of us are really OK with that, are we? And this is why I think it's just hot air all over again from Boris and Priti Patel. Firstly, our Navy is now pretty small. We have an obligation in the far Pacific with Australia now. We have, of course, boats in the far north as well to patrol the waters there. Do we actually have the capacity to shove a couple of warships in the Channel? If they're not going to push the boats back, then actually, I think this could be very humiliating for us. Can you imagine the pictures of a dinghy full of illegal immigrants just sailing through 2 warships before being towed to Dover? It would be a national embarrassment, wouldn't it? So I don't see how it's going to work in practice. It does have the whiff of desperation about it, almost like Boris has, as a last-ditch attempt to save his own skin, just blurted out the words, "warships in the Channel," and expected something to be done about it. Just as a slight side note as well, this Operation Red Meat stuff also includes potentially defunding the BBC. That was making massive headlines yesterday, of course it was. Right, OK, but if you really listen to Nadine Dorries, she talked a tough game on Twitter, but then stood in Parliament and said that the BBC actually, essentially, just has to produce a report showing it's tackling bias. Well, I actually happen to know for a fact that this report is already being compiled. In fact, Robbie Gibb, a non-executive board member at the BBC, is already going round media organisations and think tanks discussing the issue of BBC bias. I know that for an absolute fact. It's almost like they knew this government announcement was coming. But anyway, back to the Channel. It is looking increasingly unlikely that we're really going to stop these boats coming across. It seems unlikely that in practice this government or our Navy would enforce a policy that directly led to migrant deaths. The French aren't going to stop them, are they? And it doesn't seem to matter how much money we throw at them. So, if people are going to keep coming, we need a proper fast-track deportation system. These people may well set foot in Britain, but there needs to be a huge detention centre built and rapid processing. In my opinion, if people can't prove who they are or where they're from, then they must be sent somewhere else. There is, of course, talk of Rwanda and Ghana being used as non-UK bases. I imagine that may have come as a bit of a shock to the people of Rwanda and Ghana, but money talks at the end of the day, and if we are paying them to take these people, then they'll probably do it, in my opinion. That's the way now to solve our migrant crisis. As it stands, illegal immigrants know that they can get to Britain, and once they're here, they can stay here. I don't think putting the Navy in the Channel is going to stop them getting to Britain. So we have to make sure that they know that once they get here, if they're not genuine asylum seekers, then they can't stay here. It removes the incentive and it solves the problem.